Hello and welcome to Canvas training at Mercy College of Ohio. Today we're going to look at quizzes and some of the quiz settings, and we're going to look at quiz banks and some other more advanced features of setting up a quiz. Like anything else in Canvas, there are several different ways to accomplish the same thing. In this case, I'm going to start by clicking on Modules. I'm going to find the module where I want my quiz to live. I'm going to click on plus. I'll pull down to Quiz. I want this to be a new quiz, so I'll click on New Quiz. I'll name it. This will be our energy quiz. You'll notice there are other boxes here. One of them is Group. One of them is Indentation. If you leave these at default, that's fine. If you want to use some more advanced features, you can use Group. Group refers to not a student group, but an assignment group. So if you want all of your quizzes to end up being 25% of your final grade, or maybe you want all your discussion boards to be 25% of your final grade, you can set up assignment groups in Canvas to accomplish that. And it's a nice tool that will extrapolate the weighted average of these different types of assessments. So it's something you might want to explore, and it's something we'll get into greater detail in another session. For now, I'm going to pull down to Quiz Group, which is a group that I created. And again, if you don't want to use groups, you don't have to. You can leave it at default. The other thing you see here is indentation. This is a formatting thing, so if you want your quiz to be indented in your module, you can choose different levels of indentation. I'm going to leave mine at Don't Indent. And so now I have my name, my group, my indentation. I'm going to click on Add Item. When I add item, you'll notice the quiz is now in my module, but you'll also notice that it's gray, which means it's unpublished or in a draft mode. I want to go ahead and click on this. You'll see there's nothing in our quiz. I'm going to click on Edit. And you'll notice when we click on Edit, we're faced with a page that has two tabs, Details and Questions. Details tab is where the settings are for the quiz. We're going to start there. You'll notice we have our rich text editor here, the same type of editor we're faced with when we create anything in Canvas. So we're going to put in some quiz instructions. Very simple. If you want to put an image in here, a link to a website, you can use these various controls to do so. Quiz type. I want this to be a standard graded quiz or test. The other options available: practice quiz, and also survey, graded or ungraded. I'm going to leave this at graded quiz. A graded quiz is as it sounds. It's a quiz where there's an item put in the grade book and the student gets a grade. The ungraded quiz is a practice quiz, and it gives the student a grade, but it doesn't show up in the grade book. Surveys are used to not check on wrong or right answers, but just to survey answers, just as it sounds. So you can use either an ungraded or a graded survey. A graded survey would be something where you want to give the student credit for taking the survey. Once again, it doesn't have anything to do with the answers of the survey, but just gives credit for completing the survey. So those are the different quiz types available. The assignment group we already talked about briefly. Once again, you can leave this at default if you're not using assignment groups in your course. There are options such as shuffle answers, useful if you want to shuffle your multiple choice answers. There's also the familiar time limit. So in this case, we're going to put 60 minutes in. Here's an option to allow multiple attempts. There is also an option on whether or not you want students to see their quiz responses. If you want them to see their quiz responses once after each attempt, or possibly you want to let students see their answers or the correct answers at a given time. So if you check this, let students see the correct answers, and you don't use these date boxes, the students will be able to see the correct answers after they answer a question. If you want to hide the correct answers, you can do so. This is useful if you have several sections taking the same test and you don't want to release the answers until all the students have taken the test. You can set a date here. So let's say we want to release the correct answers on the 27th of March. We can do so. You can select the option to show one question at a time or present all questions at once. You can require an access code for the quiz. So if you want to password protect your quiz, this is useful possibly if you want all students to take the quiz at a testing center, and maybe you'll give them the password when they get to the testing center. That's where you would use this option. There's also an option to filter IP addresses. Again, this is mostly used if you want to make sure students can only take the test from a given location, or you want to track the location of where they're taking the quiz from. This is something you probably won't use, but it is an option that's available to you. Here you can assign the quiz or the tests to a certain group of students. So let's say you have an advanced group of students and you want to give them a certain quiz. You can create that advanced student group and you would drag it in here. We're going to cover how to create student groups in a later session, but know that you can differentiate who takes a certain quiz. In this case, we're going to leave it to everyone. Here's a due date for a quiz. Let's say we're going to set this for March the 20th, and we can make the quiz available. Perhaps we'll do March the 13th through March the 20th. This is a pretty common setting. If you want to have a quiz open for the entire length of a module, you can set that here. Now, one of the questions I get quite often is, what if I have a student that needs an accommodation? Let's say we have a student who needs double time to take a quiz. I'm going to show you how to set that in Canvas. We've gone through all the settings in the Details tab. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Save and Publish. Once I do that, we'll see that our quiz is published, but there are no questions in it yet, of course. But what I want to do is show you how to set up an accommodation for a student. So in this case, after the quiz has been published, you'll click on Moderate this quiz. You'll find the student who you want to give accommodations to. In this case, it's going to be our test student. Click on Edit. At this point, you can choose to give the student an extra attempt or extra time on every attempt. So in this case, our student needed double time, and Canvas is telling us that everyone already gets 60 minutes. We're going to add an extra 60 minutes. We're going to click on Save, and you'll see Canvas is telling us now that the student gets 60 extra minutes on each attempt. So we're done there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my quiz. Now notice Moderate this quiz, which is the link that we used to create the accommodation, is lit up or active when the quiz is published. When it's not published, you'll no longer see that link. So I just want to point that out to you. If you're creating your quiz and you can't find where to create that accommodation, make sure your quiz is published first. The next thing I want to do is show you how to create questions in a quiz.